interview. Thank you. To interview two candidates before us today. The board will interview the candidates. Following the interviews, the board will discuss the next steps. And there will be no public comment, but we look forward to the discussion, to learning about the candidates, and preparing ourselves to make a decision. With that, I'd need to read the usual recording announcement. Inform everyone that Falmouth Community Television, known as FCTV, and Sean Driscoll, the authority's communications director, are making audio and video recordings of today's meeting. Anyone else making an audio or video recording of today's meeting, please identify yourself by pressing the raise your hand icon on Zoom, or if you're joining by telephone, pressing *9 on your keypad. And when you're recognized, please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Or if you're in the room, you can raise your hand. Start over there. Thank you. Great, thank you. And now go to the Zoom. Kai?
Good morning, everybody. Kai Quigley, the Inquirer and Mayor.
Thank you. Jason?
Good morning, Jason Graziadei, Nantucket Current.
Thank you. And SM Harris?
Susan Bond, Cape Cod Times.
Oh, thank you, Susan. Good to go.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a further statement. Do we need to read the, I don't believe so. We're good. What do you know? Okay. All right. We're here to interview and discuss with Mark Amundsen his application to join as general manager of the Steamship Authority. I think that, for the board's point of view, it's up to each board member, but I think it would make sense, having read your resume, having been experienced with the statements that you've made to the working group, that probably each member of the committee should ask a question. We can keep going around the room until everybody's exhausted what they have to ask, and learn as much as we can. Do you want to start with a statement about your interest in the job and what you see as the challenges, Mark?
Yes, I'd like to first say it's a great honor to be here today to be interviewing for this position. The Steamship Authority is a great organization. I'm very happy to have my time here. I started here in 2019 as a result of the HMS report. The HMS report had not been done, I would not be here. I felt I've always been an agent of change with the authority, and I've totally vested my time, my professional time, to be a great employee, which I feel I've been for the authority. I've worked in many different positions. Started off as Director of Marine Operations in 2019. In 2020, I took over also the Director of Engineering and Maintenance. Been involved in, been an integral part of every project and system put into the authority since I started in 2019. I want to thank Mr. Davis for hiring me. Thank my colleagues at the Steamship Authority for supporting me. And with that, any questions?
Okay. Anyone want to start? Rob? You happen to be there. We could start at this end.
No, that's fine. Good morning. Thanks, Mark, for putting yourself out there and for putting yourself up for this. Not really sure where to start. I guess I'll start with some basic stuff. What makes you the best candidate for this?
Well, I believe I have the leadership. Leadership is a key component for the Steamship Authority. I believe that leadership, my experience at the Steamship Authority and all the various positions that I've held, give me a sprint start into the general manager's position. My vision, I have a vision that I think is real important for the next general manager to have. There's a lot of new things, coming down the pike here with electrification, with hybrid, with, meeting the governor's mandates for emissions. I believe that we need to look at generating more revenue as an organization. I think that we've been living in the fare box my entire time here, and it's been a very well financially managed company. The problem is it's unsafe to get out of the fare box. We need to look at new revenue streams, onboard revenue generation. I'm a proponent of the New Bedford service. I believe that there's a business plan for this, because it's more than just the Woods Hole Road. It's the bridges coming across Cape Cod. The bridges affect everyone. Right now, every car, every vehicle is going over the bridges. Now, a service to New Bedford would benefit New Bedford. And if it's a RoPax model with passengers and freight, New Bedford would benefit by having hotel, restaurant, that type of amenities that would be used by people going to the vineyard. One of the interesting numbers is there's over 100,000 cars are going over the bridges to get to Woods Hole, to get to Martha's Vineyard every year. A good portion of those could go from New Bedford directly into Martha's Vineyard. Now, for the islanders, the advantage to them is giving them a second egress getting off the island, because everything goes through Woods Hole. You're going to Providence Airport, you don't necessarily want to go over the bridges. The bridges are something that we have to plan for every single day. I live in Plymouth. I go across the bridges morning and night. I'm backed up 1 to 2 miles every day, off peak, with the new light on the connector highway. So I think this is an opportunity to thoroughly investigate that. And I know it's been tried in the past with just freight, but it has not been tried in a RoPax model. And I would be wanting to bring to the board a business proposal to discuss in a 90-day period. There are a lot of challenges with infrastructure to be able to do this. It's a different climate than the last time they were there 20 years ago, but I think it's an opportunity we need to look at closely.
Thank you for that.
Well, since I'm New Bedford's representative, where in New Bedford do you see the site presence there?
It would have to be obviously south of the bridge, couldn't have the impact of the bridge. We have been approached by various entities about a possibility of a location at the southern area down near Foss Maritime. That's one location. I believe there's also other locations, but this would be early in, we would have to thoroughly investigate where the terminal would go, if there is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are the first steps that you would take to do that?
Number one, I would do a thorough investigation of, number one, traffic statistics. We need to have a good feel of, when I put that number, 100,000 cars that are going past New Bedford and over to Martha's Vineyard, there's 328,000 cars from Massachusetts going across those bridges, going into Martha's Vineyard. The numbers are gaudy. Having a good understanding the demographics of why people, if I'm going to Martha's Vineyard and I'm coming from Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, if there's an opportunity for me to bring, and I'm going over by car, this would really be a change. I'm going to want to get off in New Bedford and go directly to Martha's Vineyard. I don't want to deal with the bridges. I don't want to have to deal with other aspects of the Woods Hole Road. I'd like to go directly there. Now, to do that, we would need time to destination is important as well. For instance, it would be a 16-knot vessel would take an hour and a half to get to Martha's Vineyard from New Bedford. That's a consideration of having the right vessel and having the right training, the right timing of this. Now, this isn't to replace the Woods Hole to Martha's Vineyard route. This would be just a leg off the route and a portion of the traffic. I think there could be as many as 1 or 1 to 2 vessels in the peak summertime that could be on this route. So to do it, we would have to do an analysis of the traffic flows, how it would affect the schedule going into Woods Hole. Woods Hole, we're just finishing a new terminal. We want to make sure we have full utilization because that is the most efficient way of getting from Martha's Vineyard to the mainland or the Cape side at Woods Hole. So keeping that in mind, having a balanced system of also balanced cargo. Now, a lot of the freight coming out of the area is coming from New Bedford. If you look at Stop and Shop, they're based in Freetown. If you look at UPS, they're coming from Worcester. If you look at Sid Wainer, they're in New Bedford. A lot of the supplies coming to the islands, and I'll say both islands, are based in New Bedford area. So it's exactly 60 miles from New Bedford to Boston, 60 miles from the Sagamore Bridge to Boston. I think for the Islanders coming off, I think it's a choice. It's a choice they don't have right now, especially in the summertime areas or right now year round with the backups. I go up 140 all the time to 24 up to the Boston west of 128. To me, it's a great way to get to avoid the Southeast Expressway. There's a lot of work to go to put a business plan together for this. There's a lot of investigation into infrastructure changes. You're talking about building a terminal over there. This isn't something that's going to be identified and totally, it's going to take time to put together the plan.
When you say building a terminal over there, have you identified a site by
Yes.
chance? You
Yes.
have identified one.
Yes.
Okay. And are you foreseeing a boat that carries cars as well as passengers?
Yeah, it would be a Woods Hole type vessel.
Okay. And what about New Bedford to Nantucket? You seem to be focusing on the Vineyard. I'm curious about New Bedford to Nantucket.
I think that there's an opportunity for having a quad crew and doing a night transportation system that would arrive at 5:30 at both ports we would get some extra capacity out of those vessels as well. I don't see right now a system that would go directly New Bedford to Nantucket on a full-time basis. It's too long a trek.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mark, you know that when we got our packet from, you know, the folks in England there and stuff like that, we didn't know who had applied, you know, for this position. And I was, you know, kind of shocked when I saw that your name was on there. And reading your profile and what you've done, and I didn't know all of that. And all I can say is, you know, you've been around. And I appreciate that. And what I think we can go back to New Bedford in that conversation, but I'm interested in some of your background. I mean, you've been in several cases all over the globe, and you know, working in different ships and things like that, whether it's bulk or whether it's tankers. You know, the profile just went on and on. I wish I knew that, because I'd love to pick your brain on it. So I'll do that right now. You can just tell a little bit more about your background and the different venues you worked and projects you tackled.
Yeah, I come from a family that's, I have a brother that's like myself, I have a chief engineer steam and motor license. I sailed from Valdez, Alaska to the West Coast for better part of a decade. At that point, I had worked in a great company called American Trading Transportation. And they asked me to come in to be a superintendent for some new acquisition of vessels that we had. And I kind of never saw myself working in New York City. I ended up working in New York City for 6 years. But I think that's really given me the balance and the opportunity to see the, ship management. And I just flourished in the position. And unfortunately, they had sold off the company. But before they did, I did a tremendous project called the Flag Project with them. It was fiber optic link around the globe. So what this was laying fiber optic cable from Japan to the UK. And I developed a ship that carriage of, I think it was 5,000 miles of fiber optic cable and repeaters. And the plan I put together, I'd load the cable in Newington, New Hampshire, and I brought it to Italy, brought it to Cyprus, offload to the cable layers. They would go do it and back and forth there. And it was a great thing because no one had ever done that before, and it generated $32 million for the company. And as a young engineer, I was excited. I was like, boy, you can really make changes in the world. And from there, I did a lot of work up at Halifax Shipyard, and I did 3 to 4 dry dockings with the company ships, and they asked me to come on board to be the director of Irving Shipbuilding. For the Irving Shipbuilding is Halifax Shipyard, Shelburne Ship Repair. They're one of the largest shipyards in North America. Well, that was a fantastic learning curve for me because I mastered the ship construction, ship repair part of my life as far as how it worked with ships I've done. So I've really started getting into ferries up there because I was doing all the ferry repairs and modifications for Atlantic ferries and Bay ferries up in Halifax. So it was an introduction into ferries, and sometimes you don't know where careers land. And I was living coming from Boston, the Boston area just north of Ipswich, and I'd come home on weekends on the ferry down to Portland, Maine, and they stopped it. And after eventually I said, put together a business plan, and I found a brand new $160 million. This is a different type of ferry. It's a cruise ferry. It has much more amenities. It has casinos. It has, 3 restaurants, 160 cabins. And an owner had 2008 had hit, and the owner of it didn't make it past that financial crisis. So the shipyard had this built specific ferry, and I approached the province of Nova Scotia because I had been working with them a lot on their public works projects, and put together a plan and reopen that service. And then it didn't. We had a ship that was way too big for the service, and they did not want to go further on that. They wanted to bring in a local company. And so my joint venture partner and we brought it, and we ran it in Morocco for 3 years until we ended up selling it to, I was a joint venture, it's called a despondent owner. I had the long-term charter on it, and it was sold to a company, Pole Ferries in Gdansk, Poland. So I came home after that in late 2018, and I saw this opportunity with the Steamship Authority, and I kind of this is in my backyard, growing up in Ipswich on the North Shore. So I started here, and I just flourished here. I just feel like this is the right place for me, and I'm very happy to be here. Very enjoyed this job. People here are great. The Steamship Company is a great organization, and I'm really happy to be an important impact player here.
That's wonderful. You developed a patent on an exhaust system or something, is that correct?
Yes, we had 10-hour transits from Portland, Maine over to Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. So normally all the refrigeration trucks were carrying a lot of lobster and seafood back and forth. These are in the cargo hold, so most of the extractions, most of the, you have to run compressors to cool down. And so what happened was there was no electrification there. So I worked at DNV. I designed with my architect an extraction system, probably like you'd see a vehicle inside, where it would be an exhaust fan would hook up with a snorkel on all the diesel compressors, and it would suck all the gas out, so it would be no effect in the cargo holds.
That's interesting. You just hook it up to the exhaust system and do you use the turbo at all to help push the gases or anything like that?
No, we had our own extraction system.
Yeah, interesting. I'll be back to you.
Mark, would you, if you were to be offered this position, what would be the 3 things that you would try to accomplish in the first 100 days?
I think one of the things that I'm passionate about is we need to improve customer service. I'd come to the board, I'd want to hire a director of customer service and get in a formalized program of customer service. I think it's important. We have 700 employees here. And I think we just like we've put one thing we have really learned here is we put in a formalized safety quality management system that has a lot of processes and procedures. And we need to do the same for that in training. When you get down to Walt Disney, for instance, that is a well-trained company for handling customer service. We need to have that type of program. The other thing that I would do is we need to generate more revenue. And one of the things is what we have on board is we don't have amenities. We're not generating any onboard spend. Onboard spend is critical. Now, I've done research on a very similar operation. They generate just from food and beverage, $5 per person. I don't think the contract we have is very good with Center Plate. I don't think the quality is that good. I think that we need to either get into that ourselves or do something different, because we're getting for revenue out of there about 30 cents per person on board spend, and other operators are getting $5. So we need to, and when you look at carriage of 3 million people at $5, that's a generation of $15 million. We have to look at every revenue stream we can and to maximize it, because ships are getting more expensive. Right now, we're seeing a 30% increase in ships. Ship construction, with the electrification, it's even going to go higher. We've got to get outside our fare box. We need to generate more revenue.
That's 2.
Okay, one more. So we need to, and the third one I believe there's a revenue stream that I want to try is putting together the plan for New Bedford. I think there's an opportunity there. I think we have to thoroughly investigate it, and there's a possibility of that being a third revenue stream.
Thank you. Peter?
Good morning, Mark. You've referenced the 2018 HMS report and how you were your position, you were directly hired in part in response to that report. Kind of looking back to that report, what changes do you feel still need to be made as a result of that report, as well as changes that need to be made within the steamship based upon not only the 2050 climate goals, but the community tensions that are happening because of the stresses on the port communities?
Okay, The HMS report, I think that we are well on our way. We put in a new safety quality management system. We're making great strides, but it's been 3 to 4 years since we've been certified. It's a 10-year plan. Our people are thoroughly changed in the way they do their business in every aspect of the Steamship Authority. I think that part is going well, but it needs further development, and that's part of the maturation project of getting a full-blown SQMS system at 100% operation. For me coming here, I had not worked in a conventional system. It's a change management system. It's getting people doing things different in a process basis. Now, the other aspect of that, we've made great strides. We've completely flipped the engineering group. It's one of the proudest things, I think, as a company, and including Bob gave me we were able to hire all new engineers. I've got them all thoroughly trained. Matter of fact, the succession plan is working extremely well. We've just promoted Zach Lawrence, the Director of Engineering. He started as a young engineer. Now he's moving up, and that's kind of exactly where we need to be doing is training our people, promotion succession plan within. I have 2 other port engineers that are just as gifted as Zach that are ready to come up. We have flipped the script. When I started here, there was 247 mechanical cancellations for the year 2019. Up to date this year, we hit 70. That's a tremendous drop, and that's because of the safety quality management system. That has everything to do with the introduction of planned maintenance system. You've heard me harp on from the dry dock, reports over the past 5 years, what we've done. That's a direct result of having a proper safety quality management system. Those are a substantial drop from 247. Where we need to go, I am passionate about the customer service part of this because I think we really need to get there. The next part of community relations, I think that it's going to take time. You have to meet with people. I met with a smart group, Smart Citizens, and they were very interested in hearing what we were doing with electrification and RD99 fuel. And I think communication is the key, we need to set up more meetings. We need to have more town halls. I'm putting in a reservation system right now, which I'm a leader of. And one of the things is getting out and seeing and meeting with all the stakeholders, all the trucking companies, all the people. People are invested. You have to remember that the ferry system is the most impactful transportation system to the islanders. We all don't like going to Logan Airport, but we only have to do that once in a while. For the ferry systems, the impact is such that it's impacting every aspect of my life. I'm going over for a doctor's appointment. I'm going over for school. It's every single thing, and having a properly run ferry system, which we have, but we need to go from good to great. But the impact of living on an island and relying on the Steamship Authority is paramount for everyone who lives there. It impacts their life every day of the week. We have to be in their livelihood, for the freight companies, from everything it has to do starts in the morning with the Steamship Authority. Now I think I got most of that. Did I forget?
The question was, what changes do you see you need to be made at the steamship, and including focusing on community engagement and HMS report implementation? So if you felt that you've answered that, then
I got one more. The strategic plan. We are still in the early stages of it. It's developing very nicely. I like the way it's going, but We need to get, in the strategic plan, we need to develop a financial plan of how we're going to fund the projects. Right now, we can't live in the fare box. The price, we're just completing the Woods Hole terminal. There's going to be more terminals coming up. The maintenance costs are going up as a result. I've seen 30% increase in ship repair contracts. One thing that I do want to do is I want to realign our dry dock schedules. I want to get into a twice in 5, so we're doing less dry docks in a 10-year period, and that will offer a substantial savings. Now, we do get one of the things that, the Mark Rosem's group has done well is we've got a lot of grants. Now, grant money is now flowing into our ship repair work, but I believe that we need to look at every avenue. We have to raise revenue and we have to cut our expenses. And that's one method. I think that, throughout every aspect of the company needs to be looked at of what we can do to save further. Community engagement, town halls, I think on a regular basis, I would be very accessible. I think I had a situation not too long ago where I got a call from, and this goes back to customer service. I had an individual call me, they did not understand how they get put back next to large trucks all the time. Sometimes it's a matter of just going down and meeting with people and solving the problem on site. But I don't think that our communities know us very well. I think we need to do a better job into getting out and meeting with the stakeholders because we have such an impact on their life.
Some of my questions you've already answered in your other answers. There is a lot of public angst or public distrust, public community issues with the Steamship Authority, but which but do you have, how do you, how would you address some of that? How would you, take public input, for instance? And then at the same time, you also spoke about there's a lot of good in the Steamship Authority. How do you get those messages out in a way that the public accepts or understands or is okay with? Because it seems like there are a lot of things that happen that the public has one perception of it, and internally the steamship has another perception of it, and it may be good versus bad. But how do you address that with the public? You talk about customer relations and customer service. I just need a little bit more on that, if you could.
One thing is clear is that we don't tell the public the good things that the steamship does. We have 700 employees, and I can tell you, we have some talent in that room, in that office, and they are good. And when people come to work here, they have a lot of honor. When we hear negativity in the press, we don't like that. I mean, we work hard. We work very hard. People come here, they're not showing up for work. They're coming, they have some real solutions and are really engageful. We need to get that out there in the public. However, we need to get more on e-news. I think that there has been a step change in the communications with Sean Driscoll and the hiring of 2 new people, and they're making a difference. They're out there. People are communicating through social media. They're communicating, and I think that right now there's been a good step change, but we have to get out and meet with our constituents on the islands. We have in the port communities. They need to know us. They need to know what we're doing. I mean, we just met last week with the group in Woods Hole at the library, and they had no idea what we were doing as a group as far as on RD99 fuel and hybrid work. When you have no communication, it just is an avenue for not having a clear understanding of what the steamship is doing. I think having a month monthly meeting where people it's a lot of work to go out there, but it's worthwhile, I believe, is to have and people need to sometimes just vent and get it off their shoulders of what they'd like to see the steamship move into. I think the strategic plan is really critical as it's being driven now. We need to get, and we are getting, stakeholder involvement in it. We need growth we need input from every bit of the community. Now, this reservation system we put in is going to be a game changer. It is a very powerful tool. It's going to allow us to have better communication with our constituents. They also will be able to book much more easy. Right now, our system it's in need of overhaul, and we're in the process of doing that. But stuff like, for instance, to be able to have like a bundling of services, like if you're a hotel or you're just you want to rent your house on the islands, to be able to have that embedded part of a bundle system with a fare. We should be able to do that. It shouldn't be that as difficult to get on the island and off the island as it is right now. We need to, and part of that is having a system that works well. And I think that's going to be a communication tool with people on the islands that they're going to really enjoy. And also people coming to the islands, because many people feel that I'm not going to go to the islands because I can't go, because I can't get over there. We need to have a better system which allows us to plan better. And it's in the beginning, it's coming. When we get the full power of this system, it's going to be a game changer.
Am I next? If you were offered this job, how many years would you commit to?
I would commit to 5 years and some options. Just I've worked here already almost 7 years, and I'm invested in the Steamship Authority. I think anyone who knows me, we were getting ready for the first ship for Barnstable. I went down there and spent 3 months straight in Alabama, making sure the delivery of that vessel came out. I'm in this for the long term.
And a follow-up question, if you weren't offered the job, would you stay with the Steamship Authority?
I'm invested in this job. So the answer to that would be yes. Quite frankly, I like my job. I love my job as Chief Operating Officer. I enjoy working for the Steamship Authority.
Last question. When do you believe the Steamship Authority should build another fast ferry?
I think that we need to concentrate on the Woods Hole style ferries. Those give the flexibility, and I'm talking 16-knot Woods Hole ferry. That is that's the vessel everyone wants, because you can flip that into being a pure freight carrier. You can flip it into being a pure car carrier. Like to see some more seats on that boat, but I think that's the type of model that we want to have going forward as the first vessel. The INO style vessel, high-speed ferries are very good, but I think we have to concentrate right now more on the Woods Hole style ferry.
So with all due respect, you really didn't answer my question. So, I mean, what you said is we need to concentrate on a different type boat. Do you see the Steamship Authority building another fast ferry?
Yes.
And do you have any concept of a time frame for that?
I would say in probably 4 years, and it's got to be part of the strategic plan also. But I also believe when I was in Spain, when I was managing a group of vessels in Spain, I was managing some INCAT 74-meter high-speed cats that also carried cars, 35 cars. And I think that's a model that would be very interesting for Nantucket, because there are times when you need to get over there quickly. Contractors need something real quick. It's a different model, but I think there's there's some value into looking into that model of a slightly variation of it.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Mark, you kind of touched on leadership and as being one of the key elements we have to concentrate on. How would you, looking at the executive team and things like that, and how would you mold the executive team into a more productive and, team and also, uniting everybody together? In other words, what is your leadership style?
My leadership style, I'm a very good listener. I empower people but in tasks, but I also expect accountability. I think our leadership team at the Steamship Authority has grown into a very good team. Very proud of the work that we have done collectively, although we don't do a very good job of probably getting that information out to the right people. As far as my style, I'm very proud of what I've done when I came in here, it was the mandate from the HMS report was hiring 3 port engineers, hiring a project engineer, hiring a planner. I mean, it was starting from the ground up, and we have a very good team. I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of the work we've done here. And I think a lot of my colleagues in the Steamship Authority, we are very proud of the work we do every day. And I think that's part of this is you mentor young people. And this is kind of I volunteer, they approached me to the Mass Maritime Academy, asked me if I'd get on the engineering advisory committee. And I really enjoyed that because I can help format the curriculum over there because there's a lot of changes going on in the Merchant Marine Academy. And I don't know why they let a Maine Maritime guy come through a Mass Maritime door, but I'm very happy to, I really enjoy doing that. And part of it is we go over capstone projects, but that part of what I'm trying to say is, mentoring and teaching are very important elements that I enjoy doing in development of people that work for me.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of times that I think we need to capitalize and learn from, what you're saying is getting the word out. I do not believe the public honestly knows what an institution this is. It is doing, I think, a wonderful job, and we're getting just the opposite from reading the press and the things like that. Hardly ever read something that, oh, they did this, they did that, congratulations. Doesn't happen. So it needs somehow we've got to turn that whole thing around, and I think your suggestions of town meetings and all of that adds to it. But one of the biggest things is communications, and as they say, there's none so deaf that can't hear another or refuse to listen. And I don't know the exact answer, but that's something that we do have to concentrate on.
Yes.
So that's a statement, not a question.
Okay.
I've already asked you a bunch of questions 2 other times, so I'm running short.
Thanks, Bob. Mark, you talked about new revenue streams. You talked about new vessels. You talked about new routes and new terminal facilities. We do have a fare box system. We have people who are concerned at the expense levels we have. You also talked about cutting costs. Where would you cut costs? And what would you do in terms of the kinds of capital that's necessary to do the kinds of things you're talking about?
I think that we need to get to the governor's office and get some support from some of the capital projects that we need going forward. We just saw the cost of what the Woods Hole Terminal cost, and we're going to have in the future in our strategic plan, probably Nantucket is going to be next.
Mhm.
And when you start getting into subsea, you know, it's all fresh in our minds what happened in Woods Hole and the cost of it. The cost of doing business, having terminals and maintaining terminals is very high, to the point where we need other revenues. We need other money to pay for these. And I think that we really need to get something out of the Mass State Governor's Office or MassDOT. We are with the amount of traffic, these are commuters going back and forth to the islands every day. It is the same thing as a road, yet we're getting no input in from the state. We need to change that. The model has to change. We have to get, you know, as we see right now, I think that one thing is not talked about enough is the amount of grant money that we've got from the Federal Transit Authority through various funds. And that has been, if we did not have that money, we would not have been able to build the new converted freight boats. That money is, and the amount of money that we save now in our dry docks, a lot of that money is coming from grants. And we need to totally, I think Caroline and Mark Rosen have done a tremendous job in getting that grant money flowing. It's part of what we have it integrated into our business model now as far as for paying for various items, but we're going to need more, because the next vessel that we build is probably going to be somewhere north of $80 million if it's a Woods Hole type vessel that has any type of hybrid plant in it. That type of money, we built the Woods Hole in 2016 for $38 million. It's a double in cost, and we need to develop other areas of getting money for capital projects. Just that we're going to see when we get to do Nantucket's going to be maybe not at the Woods Hole level, but it's going to be when you start changing sheet piles and driving, it's the same companies that are doing it. It's going to be expensive.
Well, let me follow up on that then. You talked about grants. Where else are we going to get the kind of capital that's necessary to do the kinds of very expensive projects you're talking about? You're right about Nantucket. I mean, it's got to be the next thing that gets worked on.
Right now, we're behind in our new construction because of the Woods Hole project.
Mhm.
It's taken away. There was a model where we were building a new vessel every 5 years, and that was a very successful, but the costs have gone up, and we need to get other money. We've increased our bond, and that's allowed us to help do these 3 vessels. The 3 vessels we just did were very important in the long term, because we really didn't have a choice. The older vessels had to be replaced. We needed to replace those immediately, because we had 2 unscheduled dry docks in a 2.5-year period with the Katamer and the Gayhead, where they had fractured shell plating. You can't wait till the vessels are at the end of their life before you decide that you have to do another project of building vessels. We need to get back on that 5-year plan. It's a proven plan. It's worked for the Steamship Authority, but when you look at having to do a Nantucket terminal and what's available, we need to get another source and I think we need to get to the state. The state needs through MassDOT or through this governor's office, we need to get more money to be able to operate this system in a good financial manner.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Seeing that Jim just stole my next line of questioning,
I'm not going to apologize.
I will follow up, though. I guess a little bit more specific, focusing on the Commonwealth's 2050 climate goals. What would be your plan for how the steamship would meet those goals? And then given this conversation in response to your answer to Jim's questions, can we pay for it under the current fare box system? And if not, what would be your plan to address it?
Okay, one of the reasons we purchased the Hornbeck vessels and converted them was with an eye forward of being able to convert those to hybrids. It's a simple conversion. Matter of fact, the 3516 main engines are easily converted to Tier 3 engines during a conventional overhaul. It's just a difference in parts. Getting them to the Tier 4 level, we would have to add an SCR with urea injection. And those 3 vessels right there, for getting to Tier 4 level, it's simple. Now, the next part of it is the hybrid part of it. Now, I've been working with Brunvoll, the manufacturer of the propulsion system, and they have a bolt-on the gearbox for PTO, PTI, PTH operation, which is it's going to be the main.
You want to tell us what that is?
Yes, I will. This is a mounted on the gearbox, and it's PTO stands for power takeout, PTI stands for power take in, and PTH stands for power take home. And like all European ferries, they have this motor, which in an emergency situation will get them back to the dock without any propulsion, main propulsion. Now, for the power takeout, what that would do is, this is a bolt-on we don't have to change any reduction gears. It's a bolt-on the existing. There's no such thing as a simple hybridization of any vessel, but this is kind of the building blocks of how we can get the 3 freight boats into a hybrid situation. And with that, these are ideal. We have locations in the void tanks. We have 65 void tanks on the Barnstable class of vessels. The batteries need to be in a separate compartment. With a lot of vessels, they have an issue with, like we would have with some of our other vessels, Woods Hole Island Home, of converting that, making new compartments for the batteries. But the benefit of the Barnstable class is we can adjust ballast simply to compensate for the additional weight of the batteries. And that's a big deal with our fleet because we have, as you know, we have limitations going into Hyannis and Nantucket on draft, which we always have to, that is a defining factor on any vessel that we have as far as being able to operate. For instance, we could never operate the Governor in the Hyannis to Nantucket because it's overdraft to begin with. Here, these vessels are ideally suited. So the other part about, the importance of being able to having a hybrid operation is on batteries, you could shut down and port. Having a PTO, PTI, PTH motor on the gearbox allows you to start the engines right from the motor. We cannot do that right now. The starters that we have, it's been tried. They just don't, they're not, when we're running in the Woods Hole to Vineyard Haven, we have 7-8 round trips a day, depending, and you burn those motors out in a week. We can't do that right now, but we also need to be able to, from emissions, to start looking at our long-term emission goals, starting to get a good plan on how we're going to do conversions on the Island Home and the Woods Hole, and also the 3 freight boats as the mainstays, and then build in a long-term strategic plan, our next building to be a hybrid style vessel, so we can have that as the base plan for going forward. Now, to go to complete electrification on the Barnstable class, it's a matter of replacing the main engine with an electric motor. And we would need Tier 4 generators, but we don't have the power coming down to the Woods Hole terminal. We don't have the power on Martha's Vineyard. We don't have the power on Nantucket Island. This is where we really need to get to be able to get to a pure electrification is, and this has been discussed extensively, is having, power brought down, and it's a major cost that we cannot absorb right now in the fare box. We would need state or federal grants to offset these costs to be able to have this type of full electrification. That is why the strategic plan needs to be developed in full to 2050, because we have to, part of the strategic plan is to have the financial plan to be able to do all these projects. So we are going to be relying on that strategic plan and the input into that, and how we need to be looking at raising funds now for 2050. Can't be with just operating 1 year at a time. It's got to be a long-term plan that's got to be started. It has been started, but getting that money is going to be very difficult. That's a big challenge to the Steamship Authority.
Thank you. I want to understand your understanding of the difference between the Nantucket route and the Vineyard route. Because really what we have overall is we have a tale of two steamship authorities, really. Yeah. There's the best of times, and then, there are different issues, different concerns, different expectations, different, habits, travel habits, different behaviors. And I want to sort of understand your understanding of that a little bit. If you could speak to that, just because it's important that it's not it's not the same for everybody.
Two separate stories here. The Nantucket to Barnstable, to Hyannis. The freight components are different here. The transportation is much more sophisticated, having multiple companies with high-speed vessels. Very important. Every morning, the workforce is going out at a timely manner to get out to Nantucket via the high-speed vessels, whether it be Highline or the Steamship Authority. That service is vital is a lifeline to Nantucket, of being able to get those workers out there. The second part of it, the heavy lifting, is the freight vessels going out to Nantucket. I think that we've made tremendous strides with the acquisition of the Barnstable class, with the Monomoy hopefully joining very soon. Those are going to be the workhorses going out, and with the extra freight capacity on there, that's going to open up, as we've seen, a lot more car space on the conventional ferries, the Eagle and the Woods Hole, when they run there. The growth of freight, I think that we have seen 2 years ago, before we had these votes, we were not able to supply the service. I think once we have the Monomoy here, is going to be a game changer. We have identical platforms of vessels, including the Barnstable, the Monomoy, and the Quina, and the Woods Hole, interchanging Swiss Army knives, as I refer to them. All the allocations for freight are the same. It's really going to be I think when we saw the car numbers going up on the Eagle this year, we want to keep the freight on the freight boats, but there are times where you need the mixed loads. Mixed loads are very important. I think that going forward, we're going to have a fight between the Woods Hole of where it's going to be operating. Everyone wants a Woods Hole. There's a reason for that. That's why I believe our next boat for construction needs to be a Woods Hole, because it is the ideal vessel and the ideal vessel speed that we need for that transit for passenger service to, and cars to both islands.
What are the first steps that you would take to improve relations between the Steamship Authority and the Woods Hole Falmouth contingency that, you know, appears to be extraordinarily critical of each and every act that Steamship Authority does?
I think one thing that I need to go is, I am not an insider, I'm an outsider. I started here in 2019. And with that, a lot of good change has happened. I really believe that people want the steamship to be successful. If the steamship is successful, then that means their lives are not being disrupted. I think having regular attended meetings, I think that's the key. Communication is the key. We have to have that candid conversation at times, that we are going to have mechanical cancellations. And it's unfortunate when we do, but we need to be able to present that we have good control of our operations and our maintenance and how we're preserving the lines. When it's funny, because when I was at the Port Council meeting last week, I saw 0 mechanicals for Martha's Vineyard, and yet there wasn't anything said by anyone about that. And I'm sitting there with my colleagues, and we're looking at each other going, this should be front page news. There wasn't. In the month of September, there was not one mechanical cancellation. We got to get that apart. We need Martha's Vineyard residents to be proud of that certificate, where it's the best kept secret that we have. We need to, that's the biggest impact on lives. When you don't hear about it, it's great to the extent that thing has happened this past month. But when you're doing 24,000 plus trips a year, you're down and you have 70 mechanical cancellation. That ratio is so low. Why can't we get that conveyed to everyone? That's a great statistic, because it is. It's the greatest statistic. That means we're operating at a very high efficiency, but we're operating at a very low efficiency of getting that communicated out there. And again, as I pointed out with Sean's group about having 2 additional people, now they're always on constant, Facebook and all the various services, and getting that out there. I think it's improving, but it's going to take time. There's some generational stuff which goes a long time back before I was here, and I don't even know it all, what happened. But I do know that since 2019, we've made great strides, and I need to get that better conveyed to our public, so that they need confidence in the Steamship Authority. And now that we've done a lot of the heavy lifting, and there's much more to go, with as far as customer service, that part of it, part of the business, we need to get that conveyed. And that's going to be meeting people one-on-one, meeting people at town hall meetings, getting out there every month and every day in the terminals, meet the general manager, but also meet the leadership team. I think we have great people that work for the Steamship Authority. They need to know who they are and what they do, and have a better understanding of our operations. And I think that in time, it will improve.
You've answered just about every question that I have here and asked you before. And I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I have, just one comment. I looked up recently the Transportation Committee and Massport and budgets and things like that. And the governor gave, I think it was $1 billion to the transportation to help, them with the different boards and things like that. We're asking, for 7 billion. And they only got 1 billion. And we don't know what's happening, with the bridges and things like that. I'm not trying to cry a river, but it's going to be a tough push. And I think that the feds, if they can start coming through, they are, fairly, I can't say reasonable, I don't know, but they do contribute. And that's going to be our biggest problem, is putting dollars and cents together. I feel like I've had a college course listening to you. And anyway, so I'm gonna just, leave off now, and if you wanna do any close-up or you got more questions, that'll be fine.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Mark, you talked about cutting costs at the Steamship Authority. Where would you cut costs?
And at first, as I mentioned earlier, I would do a dry dock realignment, that the dry docks this works in 2 ways. By realigning the dry docks, it would be twice in 5 years, which is the statutory requirement of the U.S. Coast Guard. By doing this, we would have an intermediate dry dock in the middle. So instead of having 5 dry docks in 10 years, we would have 4. Now, our dry docks are approximately at $1.5 million per vessel now, and that's up quite a bit from the past. The cost of the dry docks have increased. The issue there is having the twice in 5 allows us to have a major dry dock every 5 years and a very small intermediate dry dock. So you would go into the 5-year cycle, you'd be doing all your shaft work, you'd be doing all your major painting, it'd be the slightly extended time period, and the middle one being more of what we would refer to as a shave and haircut. I think that that's one method. I think I would also want to get an additional person for purchasing involved in the Steamship Authority's engineering group, because right now we have very active port engineers, which we need to spend more time getting multiple. We have to get multiple bids, but the quality of the bids to improve them. For instance, putting dry dock packages together on a 5-year package going out to the yards. Right now, that's one of my biggest concerns. We've just lost the yard in Rhode Island that we do, Senesco, and we're down to, our dry dock with Dame Shipyard, who do a fantastic job for us. But if they have an event or they have a booking, we could get boxed out. I mean, we saw this last year with the Sankaty dry dock. So I think getting together a longer, multiple year packages, a 5-year packages for all the vessels and putting them out on the street, we run the risk of I think we need to realign with multiple shipyards as well. I think it's dangerous to have all our eggs in one basket. We have not, our procurement policy limits us to the amount of people that want to do business, because if you have a bond and you know that your profit is going to be withheld for a year in the form of retainage, then these are commercial yards. They need to show their profit and loss for the current fiscal year. If we're going outside that and saying you can't have your profit until you got to wait a year to after the project is done, who's going to want to work with us? We have to find a way to work around that. And with longer dry dock, multiple packages, I think that'll be more attractive. We have to find a way of getting people that want to work with us in our dry docks, because it's right now, you see it every dry dock, at the board meetings. We're getting one, we go out to 20 companies, we get one return. We need to get a better way of getting a support on that. And one way is larger packages together.
Okay, I'm going to follow up. In terms of cost cutting, beyond what you've talked about in terms of scheduling maintenance, where else would you cut costs?
I think that in the dry dock packages, dry dock costs are one of our biggest costs. Fortunately, we are getting grants to help do that. But I think that we have to pull stuff out and get better contracts, for instance, paint. We're going through the shipyard to get paint when we need to get packages, direct billing from the paint manufacturers so that we can get larger discounts. Right now, if the shipyard's buying paint, they're going to put a markup on it. We need to be able to go direct.
Thank you. Peter?
You've talked a lot about the strategic plan or the need for implementing the strategic plan and moving forward with that. I'd like to kind of pivot and focus to performance plan. And if you were the next general manager, how should this board measure your success in your first year? Specifically, could you give us what you would think would be the top 5 key performance indicators for success?
Good question. I'd start off, I think we need to have a better measurement of budgets. I think we need in our dry dock budgets, in our maintenance budgets, we should define metrics of performance. And that's more of a monthly or a quarterly performance of how we're doing against budget. That would be number one. Another part that we need to look at is our people performance. We need to have metrics set up for our people to better measure that. Now, we do performance, at our annuals. We need to have that same type of performance metrics driven down into the next level as well. Having guidelines, having projects that meet budget, having performance, each individual performance. And I would love to see at some point some sort of a bonus system that could engage our employees with the ability, if you meet this performance and you save this amount of money, you will get a performance budget. I realize it's not having that is not, if the general manager can have it, why can't the rest of the workforce have it? Because if you're gonna hold that type of having a performance escalator in there, why shouldn't we be able to do that with the rest of our staff? Non-union staff is where I'm trying to go with this. I want them to be able to take that and have set metrics, and if you meet that, then you will get a bonus at the end of the year.
Those are 2. Do you have 3 more? Or I know it's on the spot.
The next one would be, excuse me one second.
Take your time.
Yeah.
I think we spend a lot of time we're operating vessels. This is, I think, the key thing. We look at terminals, and I think we don't have enough support in the terminals. And I think when I'm saying this is terminal maintenance is a major cost for us. Since I've been here, I've seen the Oak Bluffs terminal. We had to put some major costs in driving new piles We've had now just finishing up on the Woods Hole project. We're changing the terminal bridges in Nantucket right now as we speak, and we'll be going into Vineyard Haven upon right after Thanksgiving. We have a major project coming up on the deck side in Vineyard Haven after the first of the year. That's a lot of projects. We need to invest in our staff to be able to manage these projects better. We have a tremendous amount of buildings. I've got to look at, and I'll get to the answer to the question in a minute about how we do the cost savings to get into that. We have to have the proper staff set that can manage all these projects, these shoreside projects. I think we have the right staff sizes with the vessels, but for the shore side, I think that we need to invest in another senior project engineer. We just don't have right now the staffing to control that, because once we do, then we can get into better long-term planning, which we need to do for the terminal side. So there's a lot of moving parts. We have a lot of buildings, and it's just we just need to redo the staff on how we're going to manage that project so we can get out with better RFPs for this. We're too close to. We're making this too close to the time that we need the actual work done. We need to be out years ahead. The strategic plan needs to incorporate the shoreside areas, and this includes all the buildings. And so that allows us with the having better RFPs and to better get that accomplished.
And just, I guess, a follow-up, because one of the things a lot of us have focused on is improving communications and community relations. What would success look like that in your first year as GM in terms of community relations? What would you consider success?
I think the success is going to be, I think we need a longer runway to measure success, because I think we have a tremendous opportunity here getting with community outreach. Community outreach is paramount. I think having a monthly town hall meeting that is open subjects to everyone is needed. We need to tell the good things we're doing. We need for the staff to be in that, also to be projecting. So see, a lot of people know the terminal managers, but that's all they know. They know the Allison Fletchers and the terminal managers, but we need for them to get out. We need our team to get out there so they can meet our team, because we do have some very good people, and communication is the key.
Thank you. You've given a lot of great answers, a lot of detailed information and good insights. But why do you want to do this? You've said that you like being the COO. You've only been the COO for a short time. You've seen what the general manager deals with on a day-to-day basis, both internally and externally. What I'm trying to get at is this has to be a sort of no ego position. So I'm trying to understand why you want to do this.
I think this is a great organization. I think that we can even go to a higher gear. I guess I love the job I'm doing. I love the Steamship Authority, and I think that I can bring it to even a higher level. The GM job is a very difficult job, and I want to go on record. I think Bob Davis has done a tremendous job. I really have. How he maneuvered the company through the COVID period, how, this is a, this is what it was one of excellence. And with them, and actually, it's been a pleasure working with him. I like the job he does. I can do that job, and I can do that job well. I think it's a tremendous honor to be able to do that. The general manager of the Steamship Authority is, it's not a job. It's a commitment that you have to love every day of your life. You're committed to it. I fell in love with this company 5 years ago. I'm still here. That's why I want to do it, to bring it to a new level.
Thank you.
Pass.
Thank you.
The general manager job of the Steamship Authority, you've described all the stuff about it. But it's like having a target on your back. And there are people who will never be satisfied. There's 1,400 trips between Martha's Vineyard and the mainland every day, the car equivalency spaces. And you talked about the great reliability numbers that we've had in terms of mechanical breakdowns. And I had a meeting, the Vineyard, last evening. And that wasn't the news that people wanted to talk about, the good stuff. People wanted to talk about the things that they thought were wrong. And it's just sort of a follow-up to what Rob asked. Given that there are some people who aren't going to be satisfied, and there's a great silent majority who actually values the steamship, I think, and understand that it's a boat line and it's not a bridge. Given that, why would you want to do this when you are successful where you are and able to make changes with the reservation system, with the staff, bridging the issues between the marine side and the shore side, implementing the strategic plan from where you are? What drives you to do this?
This is a team effort. It's not about one person. It's getting the group together that can operate pulling the same line. I feel I'm a leader. I'm a motivator. I can get people to work. I'm so proud of the work that we have changed the engineering group. There's so much pride in that group. I like doing this type of work. I want to be the next GM of the Steamship Authority because I think I could do a fantastic job. I think I can take what Bob has done and build on it. And this is something one day someone would do the same with me. This is something, the Steamship Authority is a great place to work. And I thank the opportunity for being able to work here.
Thank you. Peter?
I think I don't need to follow up after your last question.
Okay. Anything further from any member of the board? You want to sum up?
Thank you for the consideration for myself here today. I look forward to hearing the outcome, and I look forward to being with the Steamship Authority for years to come. It's a great organization, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done over the past years, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Your remarks are clearly thought out, and I think provided a lot of information, not only to the board, but also to the people who are listening into this. So with that, Mark, thanks very much. And we will break now. And our next interview is at 1. Is it 1 o'clock, which is in 35 minutes? Of course. Okay, at this point, what is the term? Recess or break or what? Recess. We are now in recess. Thank you. And we will start up again at 1 o'clock. We're going back into session. It's now 1 o'clock. And for the record, the comment was just made. If you haven't had them, the brownies are good brownies. Yeah, okay. So we are in session now. We are interviewing our second candidate. This is Alex Kryska, who has met with the search committee a number of times, has had a number of conversations as well. And so at least myself and Mr. Jones are quite up to speed. And at this point, what we're going to do, Alex, is allow you to introduce yourself to the board and the people who are listening. We have some people from the press who are here. After an introductory remark from you or two, then we'll go into questioning, and we'll be going around the room, starting this time with Mr. Jeffrey. So, hi, Alex. Welcome to scenic downtown Falmouth.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. So introductions.
Please.
So my name's Alex Kryska. I'm a tourist. I like long walks on the beach. I have 2 kids. No, seriously, I'm a Kings Point graduate, the Merchant Marine Academy, where I started off from. I've worked in shipping off and on for my whole career, starting as a shipbroker out in California, then moving to a tanker manager for a military sea lift command out in San Francisco. Took a couple of years off to travel through Southeast Asia with my newlywed wife at the time. Came back to San Francisco and started working for Covenant Aviation Security, which is a private contractor doing all the TSA screening at San Francisco Airport. I ended up there as Director of Operations and Business Services after about 5 years, and then left to do some consulting, slipped back into the maritime working for Ride the Ducks and Classic Cable Cars. We managed the amphibious duck boats like you guys have them up in Boston. Not nearly as successful as the one up in Boston, I'll say, but it was a fun experience. And then I moved into working, the career's always been around really operations and operations management, personnel management, business development. I left Ride the Ducks and moved to an education company called WestEd, where we actually wrote standardized tests. I didn't, of course, but I was there to help with their RFP process. How do they respond to RFPs in a more efficient and effective way? And then how do they staff up their teams? Because when you get a contract, you got to staff up, and when the contract ends, you got to staff down. So I went through a reorg with them, came back into the maritime through a ticketing agency. That was my first startup that honestly didn't quite start up. I was there for a couple of years. I was in charge of expanding the ticketing operations into the maritime industry, Stork Navy ships, leisure boats, cruise boats, ferry operations and whatnot. The investors at the time decided the company they had a contract with MoMA, with presidential libraries and all these things. And their investors wanted to focus on fine arts museums. So they did away with all the naval ships and all the gardens, all the stuff that I was doing. So I transitioned from there to prop, which is where I am now. And I've been with prop now 8 years. And I started as a customer service manager. Basically, we had a contract with Genentech, which is at the time was a huge biotech company in San Francisco, and we were providing them private ferry service. We had 3 boats running with them, and we expanded it to 5 boats pre-pandemic. And I slowly worked my way up to where I am now as a COO with prop, and I'm in charge of all period. So I do business development, I do operations management. I was just telling somebody I have a ship in the shipyard today that we're doing an engine swap for. I was just on a call with a couple new ventures we're trying to get up in the Puget Sound area. So I'm kind of some ways similar to the Steamship Authority. I think we talked about in some of our previous meetings, the Steamship Authority is kind of a jack of all trades. It does a bunch of different things. The same thing I do. I do a bunch of different things. I would do budget management. I do business development, proposals, personnel management, operations management, the full gamut. Kind of whatever comes along is in my purview. And like I said, I have 2 kids out in San Francisco. Well, one's in San Francisco, one's up in Boston going to college. So that's why my interest lies here on the Cape. There you go.
You talk faster than I think.
You didn't get that from our first few meetings? Yeah.
Okay.
I'll slow down and pace myself.
No, that's okay.
Channel my inner Obama.
No, I appreciate the fact that you just got off a plane from the West Coast, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that given what's going on with the Federal Aviation Authority right now, that you were even able to get here. So we're delighted that you're here. We're going to go around and each member of the board will be asking you questions. And then when we're done with that, you have a chance to sum up.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Sounds
Mr.
good.
Jeffrey, you want to start?
And thank you for your heroic travel here today, as well as that background for those of us who are meeting you for the first time. I guess given that background and as you've done your homework on the Steamship Authority, what do you think are the biggest challenges currently facing the Steamship Authority, and how does your background put you in a position to solve those?
Well, I'd say, first of all, I don't know what all the major challenges are until I really get in there and get my hands dirty. I couldn't honestly say. From the outside looking in, what I would say is, I know Massachusetts has zero emission goals by 2050. So I think that's a challenge. That's a challenge that all the ferry companies in the US are facing. Every state has their requirements for trying to get to net zero. So I think that's a big challenge, because the fleet that the Steamship Authority has now, it's over 30 years old. So it's an elderly fleet. It's a senior fleet. We need to figure out, how do we replace that fleet with more efficient zero, whether it's hybrid, whether it's all electric, combination of what. Trying to figure out. I think that's a big challenge and a big goal. I wouldn't call it a challenge. I think it's a goal that we can set for ourselves. Like, how do we meet that? I know that the staffing shortages and staffing challenges, the way the schedules are set up now, is a point of frustration sometimes with some personnel. I think a lot of that seems to have been fairly well resolved, I think. But again, until I get my hands in there, I wouldn't truly know. But I think staff, whether it's on the boat or in the ticket office, is something you always got to manage and always got to maintain, make sure people are trained, make sure people are happy with their jobs. I'm a big believer in skip level meetings. I learned that when I worked at the airport. I started as a screener when I was at the airport. So I always appreciated going back and talking to screeners, lead screeners, just checkpoint supervisors. The guys who are there actually doing the job and are facing the customers every day. They always seem to have, they have their fingers on the pulse. They know what's going on. And they often have great answers to things. I mean, I do that now with prop as well. I talk to the deckhands and get a lot of information from them, because they're interacting with customers on a daily basis. They're putting the gangways out, pulling the gangways in, tying up the boats. They know intricately what's going on, and they know where the weaknesses are. So that's always a great place to start with your conversations. Other challenges is, funding. You guys just went through a big budget process, and I know there's a lot of debate back and forth. And I know you guys don't have tons of grant funding, but that's one thing. Like, San Francisco Bay Ferry lives off grants. Golden Gate Ferry lives off grants. Washington State Ferry is living off grants. That's something that's really big. And I know you have a grants manager. It's like, what can you do to help support her to expand what she's doing to get more grants? Because that's the only way you're going to be able to build out this fleet. You can't raise the budget by raising fare box anymore. So you got to, how do you find that outside funding, and where is that going to come from? That's all part of, I would say, Steamship Authority 2050. How do we build it to 2050 so we're net zero emissions and we're not, the passengers aren't taking in the shorts in the meantime.
Yeah, Alex, one of the questions that was asked during the interviews, is what you would do your first day or first week or whatever, and your answer was that the first thing you wanted to do is look at the authority from 20,000 feet. And I just wonder what you saw up there.
Tell you what I saw was, I wanted to get down to 0 feet. So
Right.
really, I think I've thought about that question, thought about it. It's one of the things I first want to do is, before I even walked into the office, is be out there at 5:30 in the morning for that first boat and see how that loading goes on. Hear what it sounds like, because I know there's been complaints about noise. Like, just to be there and experience it and start to talk to people and understand it from really ground zero. That's you need to see it from both angles. I think, again, from the 20,000 foot thing, I see this Steamship Authority 2050. I think that's a plan that you have to bring in place. Like, how are we going to get from where we are today to net zero? And you got 25 years to do that. It's not a lot of time in the shipping world, because boats take a long time to build, to design, to plan, to source all the material. Aluminum is going through the roof on the pricing. So how do you do that in a budgetarily thoughtful and conscious way? So that's the 20,000 foot level. But from ground zero, it's how do you make sure you have the staff, retain the staff, train the staff, have a pipeline for new staff, not just captains, deckhands, engineers, maintenance, but for ticket sellers, for customer service people. People are on the phone. How are we going to implement and maximize the usefulness of the new ticketing system? That's something that's, I mean, hopefully there's going to be huge amounts of information that you can pull from that data to understand where people are coming from, who your customers are, and understand how you can target them better and how you can expand into areas maybe where you haven't expanded into before. So there's a lot, it's kind of like the old Johnny Carson thing. There's a lot of plates spinning up there. And it's like trying to understand where they all are and trying to maintain them all.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you, your delay from California was really, orchestrated by this group here. We just wanted to see what your tolerance was for stress.
I
And
was
you
wondering
seem
where
like
you were
you
going with
handle
that.
it. Huh? So,
I deal with the
anyways,
Coast Guard every day and I have kids, so my pain tolerance is very high.
good answer. Coming, down from 20,000 feet and stuff, and I'm sure you did a lot of due diligence of what's going on here and learn as much as you can about us as we're trying to learn about you and things. So it's a two-way street and things. Any things that you saw in your due diligence that you think needs improvement, or and I realize until you get your feet on the ground, you can't answer specific questions. But your general overall impression of the authority from somebody from California looking here, and I think you maybe joined one of our Zoom meetings. You did. I thought I read it on the gallery and stuff. But any take homes from your due diligence?
I would say a couple things. You do read and hear that there's a lot of questions come from the public, and a lot of questions that the public doesn't feel there is a transparency. And I feel that the board is pretty transparent from what I've seen. I haven't, I don't know a lot about it. I haven't seen all the videos. But I think I know, Jim, you've had town hall meetings with the public. I think something like that, something I've done in the past. When we ran a service for Facebook, we were going into Redwood City, and Redwood City it's a shipping port. They do have ships there, but they only have one ship a month, so it's not really active. And they're big, dry bulk cargo ships. They don't go very fast, and they sit there for a few days. So the port there is actually predominantly swimmers, kayakers, canoers. And we came down with the fast ferry, bringing people to Facebook, which right there you're saying we have a ferry for Facebook. People immediately get their hackles up. But then it's a fast boat coming in. Even though we're going in slow at 5 knots, we had a big wake behind us, and all the rowers were quite upset about that, understandably. So we did a lot of town hall meetings to talk to them and try to get them to understand our point, try to appreciate what they're doing. I actually went out kayaking with one of them just so he could show me what he experiences. And realizing that you're not being able to please everybody, but at least showing that you're out there, you're willing to talk, willing to listen, willing to try to understand them. I had a great relationship with the Stanford crew team. We worked great together. They worked their practices around our schedule. I just let them know when we're going to be there, and they can track our boats just like you can track your boats. They can track on my AI. Say, hey, no, the boat's coming in. Let's pull over to the side here. I think that's an area there, and I got so running on my response there. I forgot exactly the question.
I was talking about the take home for your due diligence,
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I think the other thing is it's well, I mean, we all saw the news that Mark shared at the last port council meeting about the Barnstable and the prop there, and they don't know exactly how it happened. At least from what I read, is they're not sure about how it happened. It could have happened, months ago. I think that is a point of concern. It's like, why didn't somebody bring it up? Because if you hit something that's going to cause that much damage, you're going to feel it in the boat. And so there's a question like, why would the crew not feel comfortable bringing that forward? Is there a lack of training? That person not get enough training? Do they feel not supported? And I'm certainly not casting blame on anybody there. I think it's just that specific incident says something's not right here. They have that level of damage and nobody knows about it. Just kind of shows up on a random inspection. That's concerning. Okay, need to find the root cause. Like, why is that happening? Why does somebody feel that they should? Did they actually not feel it? Do they not want to talk about it? Are they embarrassed? Whatever it is, it's like you need to have an organization where people are willing to talk. I get calls all the time from deckhands saying, "Hey, this broke or this broke." I'm like, "Okay, let's fix it." Boats break every day. Boats break. It's just a
Let me
fact of
put
the
that
matter.
down where you-
Yeah.
Just so I know that in the future.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing. It's
Boats
making
break.
sure you have a relationship with the crew, between the crew and management staff, that's open and honest. And people can say, "Hey, we screwed up. We ran into this." Okay, thank you for being honest with us. Now how do we solve that? Do you need more training? Do you need discipline? Is this just a, oh, whoopsie kind of thing? I mean, there's a multitude of responses to it, but it shouldn't be, "Oh, we're going to shuffle it under the rug here and deal with it later."
I'm asking, from an outside thing and I can assure you that it has been, looked at and whatever. And I'm from Hyannis. I know the harbor inside and out of things. And things do happen, and doesn't even mean that it was within the harbor. Because when they're
Right.
crossing over to Nantucket, and you go over to Broken Ground and other places like that, you don't know.
Sure.
And they're variable pitch props, which is another thing is that I got one of my first things is just what you brought up. What caused it? Why didn't you feel it? And I can't, I'm gonna wait till, the judge is in.
Right.
But you're right, if you have something, a problem, you address it and fix it.
Yeah. I mean, that's serious damage and it costs a lot of money. And it probably affected fuel efficiency. It probably affected a lot of things. So
Yeah.
just want to dig in there and see what more you can find. And maybe you don't find anything, but you got to try.
Yeah, I did just write that down, the boats break. So
Thank you,
for,
Bob.
for anybody that wants to listen to that. And
Yeah.
being in the business, I especially know they break. Monday morning, I
Yeah.
used to turn my collar around backwards and hold chapel. So I know, but go on, I'll wait and let more go.
I've lived,
Where is your mic?
oh, I did hear you. Yes. Have I ever lived on the East Coast? Yes. I went to school on Long Island. I went to college on Long Island and I lived in Washington, D.C. for a while too. When I worked for military command.
Okay, how long is the longest you lived on the East Coast?
4 years as a pitch.
4 years consecutively?
Yeah.
And of the jobs that you have on your resume, many varied, which job did you enjoy the most and learn the most at, and why?
I enjoy the one I'm in currently the most. I mean, it's easy. Yeah, no, it's, I look back on them all and there are things I loved about all of them. I think I really enjoyed all of them. I think the one, I hate to say it's the least, but Wested is the one I knew the least amount. That was the one where I was really the fish out of water because I wasn't an education person. I was just doing kind of budgets and personnel management. When I was at the airport, it was fun. I mean, TSA had just started. We were doing something with purpose, screening people, and we're all learning on the fly. And it was just kind of and you're dealing with people all day long. You got people coming, they're all going on vacation. They're all in great moods. I mean, it's a great place to work. It got challenging once people started, you get a news agency coming in, trying to slip something through, or you get the government inspectors coming in, trying to slip something through. So there was moments of stress, but I found it to be a super enjoyable job. And I loved what I was doing, staffing, working with teams. I love now prop. We weren't big, but we had 5 boats going. We were working with Facebook and Genentech. It was exciting. Providing private ferry service, which was an amazing thing to do. Nobody does it. I think they do it at Morgan Stanley was doing it up in New York, but that's probably about it. So it's super fun. And then we went through the pandemic where we had to scale down. We had to go from 5 boats to just me, my boss, and a mechanic. So how do you let people go who are great people? I mean, luckily there was all kinds of benefits out there for them. So they're actually making more money just taking the unemployment than working for us. But that was fun too, because we went through the PPP program. It's like, okay, how did we do this? Let's learn this. We got to learn on the fly. We got to do something new. I was just on a call earlier with a possible new client, and we're texting back and forth with my partner saying, it's like, these so frustrating. All these, the Coast Guard shutdown right now. It's hard to get. We're looking at a new all electric boat, and we can't get any approvals even started because government shutdown. It's like, yeah, but that's where the fun is too. Just trying to work through that process and trying to see where the opportunity lies. And then knowing, I replaced a dock in San Leandro, 100-foot floating dock, just a regular fishing pier dock you see at a ramp, at a boat ramp. And we were trying to bring ferry service in there. It was 100-foot, it was falling apart. City owned it. And we said, we'll come in and replace it because we want to bring ferry service in and want our people to be safe. And then we'll deed it back to you once it's done. It took me 3 years to get all the approvals for 100-foot of floating dock, the exact same dock, direct replacement. And then it took 3 hours to actually do the work. And it was frustrating and challenging, but there was something fun about going through that process and like checking those boxes. When you actually check off a box, you're like, wow, that was really, really satisfying. So actually finishing that program, it took me 3 years, but I got it done in 3 years. It would have taken you 4 years. I mean, it was fun. And so I find enjoyment. I mean, I get incredibly frustrated. Right now we have a boat out of the water. It's incredibly frustrating, but you have these little nuggets of cheer. You see an employee step up and say, hey, can I do this? You're like, oh my God, of course, go for it. So that's fun too. Being able to give staff the leash to try new things and to grow and see them want to expand and ask for more. That's fun. So I'm having a great time. And I can see it would be the same thing here.
Okay, thank you.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Talking too fast.
Well, you are talking quickly, but it's all right. You said nuggets. We have a phrase that was used in Nantucket and on the island increasingly, crumbs, where we get these little things and they're good and oftentimes they're overlooked.
Yeah.
But there's enjoyment at it. On the other hand, some of the
together and
things,
you have a cake.
and the other thing, some of what you just described makes me wonder if you're a masochist. I made 3 years.
I'm in the maritime industry. That tells you it right there.
Well, that's a very good point.
That's the definition of masochism.
Okay, sorry, Rob, I cut in.
Not a problem. Hi,
Hi there.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What makes you the best candidate? Because this seems like a big sort of leap for you or a big step for you, but at the same time, it's also a big one for us. So I just want to sort of understand a little bit about what you think makes you the next general manager for the Steamship Authority.
I think my varied, eclectic, jack of all trades background is really kind of led me to this. I think this is, I'm the right person at the right time. I think I have a very unique set of skills. I ran a very large organization at the airport. We had 1,000 screeners. So I've run very large organizations with really large budgets. I've managed small ones too. I've had to downsize companies. So I think I have a lot of tools. This is a phrase we use at the airport. It's like, how many tools do you have in your tool belt? I have a lot of tools at this point. I've been working for quite a number of years, a lot of different industries. I've seen a lot of different things. I like to have analogies based on past things. If I do get hired, you'll hear me refer to things from the airport, experiences that we had there that apply to modern day. I ran a daycare business for a little while because during the recession, I ran a daycare business because I had kids. There was no work. All my friends had kids. They were trying to find work. I'm like, bring them to my house. I'll run a daycare business. So I've tried a lot of different things. And I think that's kind of put me in a place now where I have the patience, the confidence, the understanding to take on a new challenge. And this is, absolutely, this will be a big challenge, but I don't see it as one I can't succeed at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I sort of missed my turn, other than making an editorial comment or two, because we've spent a lot of time prior to this. but what? Excuse me, the press is taking picture. Yeah, deal with it. Okay. The question I'd ask you is, it's kind of a follow-up on what Peter asked, which is from your reading, learning, listening, watching, interviewing with the working group, what do you think is going to be the hardest thing for you to deal with?
My flip answer is dealing with the working group. No, I think I think one of the first challenges I'll have is giving people the confidence that I can do it, that an outsider can come in. I know I mean, Bob has worked here for years. He has incredible institutional knowledge. I'm coming in fresh. Some ways that's good, but for some people that's a challenge. You don't understand us. You're never going to understand us. I think me coming in and letting people know, it's like, I really do want to learn. I really do want to understand, and I can learn and I can understand. I think that's one of the first challenges that I would see. Getting to know the board and understanding the inner workings of the board. How best can I present myself and lead you around to my way of thinking, if that's appropriate? I think it's the biggest challenge is relationship building. And I think that's true for any job, is trying to build those relationships so that you can have a successful and effective working relationship.
Fair enough. Good. Peter?
Yeah, following up kind of from Rob's question, talking about success. If you get the general manager's position, how would you measure success in your first year on the job? And what would be the key performance indicators you would want the board to look at in judging that success?
Some of them can be difficult to measure, but employee satisfaction, board satisfaction, obviously those two things. I would want to set up certain KPIs for myself, for the agency, for my teams, so that I can show, here's where we've had measurable growth or measurable improvement. Obviously, reduction in cancellations, reduction in maintenance issues, lower negligible attrition, good staffing. There's some kind of easy softball ones you can throw out there. But I think at the end of the year, it would be, does the board still have the same confidence they have in me for the reasons that they hired me? I think that would be the number one thing. And I think I'd be working directly with the board on a lot of things, at least letting them know what's going on, keeping them apprised, asking for their suggestions. I mean, I'm going to spend a lot of time with you just to understand your area and understand your district and the people and your customers. I think the first year is going to be, in some ways, it's hard to judge after 1 year, because there's so much learning and there's so much relationship building that needs to be done that first year. It's not like the White House where you get in, okay, I'm going to get everything done in the first 100 days. Like, I'm not going to get anything done in the first 100 days, except for make sure people know what my name is. But I'll learn a lot in that first 100 days. And I think by the end of the first year, we'll have Steamship Authority 2050 in place. And what's our plan going forward? I think that's I don't know why I keep going back to that idea, this project plan that we need to have in place to, how do we replace all those ships? I know that Golden Gate Ferry they're building 6 ships. They're replacing their entire fleet with the same class, 6 of the same class ship. It makes all the sense in the world. I know that was the whole idea behind the 3 freighters. Have have boats that all have the same parts, make it cheaper for inventory, easier for training. And having boats that are all totally different, it's expensive, and it can be a training nightmare too.
Thank you.
Good. Ask me again in a year.
Fair enough. So, follow-up question now that I'm back in order here. You talk about spending the beginning of your time at ground zero, talking to people, listening to people, both in the community and at the Steamship Authority. What kinds of questions would you ask these people? Or what questions would you ask people? Hi, My name is Alex Kryska. What? Then what?
How do you think the Steamship Authority is doing? What do you like about, same questions you're asking me in some ways. What do you like about the Steamship Authority? Where do you think the challenges are? Where do you want to be in 5 years from now? Where do you think the Steamship Authority should be in 5 years from now? It's a lot of our kind of, I'd say general interview questions, but they're opening, the question is to open a dialogue and open a conversation. It's like, where do you see the challenges are? Okay, well, if that's a challenge, why is that a challenge? What can we do to improve that challenge? Do you think we can improve it? Is that something that needs to be pulled up the food chain, or is that something that can be taken care of on an individual basis? I think it's those conversations would lead to multiple other conversations and lead me to speak to other people and come back again. I think there's, and I'm not going to say I'm just out there chatting with people all the time, but part of the job is going out there and chatting to people, where there's people in communities saying to them, what's the challenge? What do you see from the outside as an area of opportunity? Then bring it to you. Hey, I'm hearing this. What do you think? Is there a way to work this out? And then bringing these ideas together with leadership of the authority. And, obviously Bob will be here. So he's a great resource. Say, hey, this is what I'm hearing. What do you think? Where can we push? How can we push? And, oh, that's the way we've done all the, is it that's just because that's the way we've always done it? Or is there actually a fixed reason why we can't do something different? And then trying to figure out, okay, we need to do something. We need to change. We need to grow. We need to improve. So where are those areas of opportunity? And constantly trying to, can I have a big old board in the office saying, where are areas of opportunity?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In our previous interviews, I think you mentioned about expanding to Europe or some other areas. What was your goal? What is your goal, to become international, or just grab whatever you can, on a foreign land, or what? I don't know. I didn't understand,
This is for my current company, not talking about expanding the Steamship Authority internationally.
That's correct.
Right. So this is my current company, Prop SF. It was Prop San Francisco. Essentially, we're a local company in the San Francisco Bay, but we realized that coming out of COVID, that the San Francisco market is actually not conducive to private ferry operators. There are no big employers that are right on the water that want to have private ferry service, and San Francisco Bay Ferry has become very aggressive about its expansion opportunities. So we started to look outside the Bay. We're looking at an opportunity up in the Puget Sound area. We have some investors. We spent some time looking at the New York City RFP when the New York City ferry service was up for bid, and we actually brought together a team and bid on it. We were not successful at the time, but through the relationships we built there, we now have some additional investors, and they're looking at helping us expand, helping Prop SF, now Prop Worldwide, expand. And there's a offshore supply boat company in Europe, I'll say, that we currently have a LOI with, and we're doing due diligence to purchase them. So it was a function of, like, San Francisco Bay is not going to be enough. There's not enough there for us, so we need to find what else is out there. And now by talking to people, we found this opportunity just purely by happenstance. Found the opportunity in the UK. I thought, okay, why don't we go for it?
Now, you spoke about electric boats as an interest in that, hybrids or all electric, or what?
Yeah, we're working with a new technology company out of Europe that's bringing in all electric vessels into the US. And we're working in partnership with them for this Puget Sound project. And we just won a grant in California to build one of those boats in California and operate in California. It's an all electric boat. Smaller. These are pilot programs. It's a 36 passenger, but it's be the first of its kind in the US. If it all works.
It'll be purely electric then, not a hybrid.
That's the goal, be fully electric.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check my notes here. I've already asked you questions.
But again, so for like the Steamship Authority, fully electric is a challenge because these are much bigger boats. They're going longer distances, and I don't know how much power is available on the islands too, to be able to recharge them and come back. So that's something that really needs to be looked at. And I think Mark's looking at that. He's looking at hybrid options, he's looking at R99. That's what we use in California. We use R99, which is a clean burning diesel, but we pretty much in California use the full supply for the US. So it's a lot more expensive elsewhere. Yeah. So, I mean, that's something, but if there are opportunities to like, kind of pull the product through, I mean, the manufacturers will say, okay, well, we can develop new sources for it. I don't know.
Yeah. Just one question that I asked you, I think a couple of times, because I was interested in the fact that, I can't think of the name of the nonprofit that you were working with to develop such things as, tests and things of this nature. And I understand where I'm going with this company. You was a nonprofit, and you were doing things like SAT tests.
Oh, Wested. Yeah. Yeah.
Just explain that a little,
So Wested it's an education company based in San Francisco. And my division, we wrote standardized tests like the SAT test, AP tests, things like that. But there was also other divisions that did curriculum development. They did, student analysis. They do a variety of different things. My area was focused on standardized tests and creating standardized tests. So we had English majors who would write test questions. We had graphic designers who designed the graphics that would go with the question. We had editors who had to read the questions and then make sure that if you're in Alabama, you would get the same meaning out of it as if you're here in Falmouth or if you're out in California. And you had to have the colors had to coincide, that if somebody's colorblind, they would still get the message. You couldn't use branded images. You had to be careful about the kind of passages you took because they might be copywritten. So there was a lot of intricacies to it that I had no idea, that it was so difficult to come up with a single question. It's got to go through all kinds of peer reviews and whatnot to make sure that anybody who reads it, whether it's spoken to you if you can't, you can't see, somebody's going to read it out to you, you need to be able to get the same impression as somebody who's actually reading it. And there's English is a second language people, and how do you apply the test for them? So definitely above my pay grade on all that stuff. But the basics of applying for an RFP, doing staff planning, doing budgeting, that was my wheelhouse, and that's why they hired me.
Okay. I thought that whole thing was interesting, my 9th grade teacher told me if I didn't take her English class again, she'd pass me. So you know how good it is now.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's the biggest mistake you've made in your employment, your adult employment, and how did you handle it?
Oh, wow. It's been, I think it's embarrassing.
Well, I lost a $3 million check once in the course of my
yeah.
employment, so.
I think I actually told this question or answered that similar question once before. That was because we were just talking about Wested. I had an employee at Wested who was a project manager, and we had just promoted him. And this is an HR issue for me. I'll be honest with you, and I learned a lot from it, but we were standing by the elevator at the end of the day. My office was right by the elevator, so I see everybody coming and going. And I saw this gentleman, call him Fred, it's not his name, but I saw him and I went, hey, Fred, like, didn't we just, and I'm like, how you doing? Didn't we just promote? He's like, yeah. I was like, can't you afford clothes that fit? Because I said that to him because at the time, the fad was really tight, skinny jeans, kind of what we would have called floods in my day, and really tight shirts. It's like pulling at the buttons. And I was looking, I'm like, why are you wearing that in the office? And my thinking I was being funny and trying to give him a message like, you really should like dress more appropriately. I made this joke to him. He kind of shrugged it off and left. And I found out, that was like on a Thursday or Friday. I found out the next week that he was deeply offended, very upset with me that I'd made fun of him and in front of people. There's only a couple of people that was in front of people. And I realized it's like, wow, what I was trying to get across absolutely was not did not get across. And I brought him into my office because it was a private place. And I'm like, I understand that you're upset with me. He's like, yeah, I'm really mad. I'm like, you know what? I've thought about it. And I realize, and it was totally inappropriate. And I'm absolutely dead sorry. But if you give me a minute, let me explain. And I said, my purpose was saying, I know you have plans. You want to succeed. You want to move up in this company. Part of that is how you look, how you present yourself. And I said, take this. The next time there's a board meeting, look and see what the president of the company is wearing. Emulate what she does. And sure enough, the next board meeting, he showed up, and it was a very stylish suit, but he showed up in a suit. And I was like, okay, he got it. And we actually, we both learned from that. I wouldn't say he learned to take a joke because it was a bad joke, and that was one thing I learned. I have to be really careful about how I talk around people. I can't just be, flip like I might be with my buddies. And that was embarrassing because actually one of the people that stand there at the door was also the director of HR. So he came to talk to me afterwards too. And I thought, I was just trying to make a little joke. And unfortunately, it was an imperceptible joke.
Thank you.
My turn. Can you talk a little bit about your leadership style? Because what you would be walking into a situation where you've got a lot of people that have been here a long time, that know a lot of stuff, know how things work, know what doesn't work, what's been tried before, what didn't work then, what kind of worked, that kind of stuff. Plus, you're going to have the outgoing general manager advising. And I just want to sort of understand your leadership style and how you would potentially fit in with what we have.
I would say, help me help you is what it is. I would not come in. I don't know the Steamship Authority. I have ideas about how things operate, but I would have to learn. I would have to go to people and rely on them to be honest with me and open with me and teach me how I can help them, how I can best support them and slowly guide them maybe, or just they can guide me. But I would come in very much hat in hand. And I have a deep bench of skills, but I don't know exactly how to apply them. And I would not assume that I would just start doing a broad brush anywhere. It would be, I know Bob, Mark, and Mark have been here. They know the system. They know where all the hidden levers are. And I would want to learn from them. And that would be a big thing for me. Is like, let me learn from you. Let's work together. We all want the same thing. We want to see the Steamship Authority succeed. How best can I help you do that? And that would be the first take, is like, here, I'm here, hat in hand. Let's work on this together.
Okay, thank you.
You talked about this, your idea of a Steamship Authority 2050, and focusing on revenue and staffing levels and replacing an aging fleet. I presume that, you acknowledge this, that we're a fare box revenue only with some amount of grants operation. So given that, you've already spoken to somewhat trying to leverage the grants more, but how are you going to meet your Steamship Authority 2050 plan that's in formation, given this fare box revenue only? Can it be met with fare box revenue only and grants?
That's a great question. I don't know. Honestly, it'd be foolish of me to say that I know the answer to that at this point. I think it's clear that there's only so much money to be had from fare box recovery. And you can only push that so hard. You could try to find more passengers, like Jim suggested at one of the last meetings, that walk-on passengers are kind of gravy, and that's great. Let's get more gravy, but that's not going to pay for a new ship. I think, finding, I know the federal government does have a push to try to build the maritime industry back again. Not until we go back to work in the federal government, but at least, as part of the plan. So it's, where are they? There was, federal highway grants. They have grants for maritime industry, for ferries. The Marriott has grants. Trying to dig in and find what kind of grants might be available on a state level. Honestly, I don't know anything about the state level here, but I'm sure if the state is pushing for this net zero, they're going to probably put money behind it as well. That's one thing California's done, is they're pushing for all these things, but they're putting in grant funding available behind it as well. So it's going to take some time to figure out where are all those buckets of money and how do we get at them. I know there's the Public Ferry Coalition, which now in the PVA that works together, all these public ferry operators work together to try to find funding or try to build up funding on the federal level. I think that's a big source. We're going to have to push for that. And I'm not discounting what's probably already been done. Just saying, I just know that's an area that's going to need focusing. And I think that's, yeah, it's going to be a challenge. But you have to replace the ships. I mean, we're going to, at some point, going to need new ships.
I liked your answer. I don't know, because it's an open question, I think, for all of us. And we've been puzzling this out, for quite a while. And it's a very hard question. Then the way we're all approaching it is we have to really come to a decision pretty quickly in terms of what's the end point, and then how do we get there,
Right.
and have a realistic view as to whether we can get there. So I like that answer. So my question then is, given the fact that you don't really know, and we're all interested in learning too, how would you take the Steamship Authority to come to an answer?
Well, I know that from what I understand, that Mark Amundsen's been working on plans for hybrid technology and whatnot. I think that's something there is to help feed that. With Bob's extensive experience with the organization and with the PVA, I know, leveraging those opportunities there. I think I would want to reach out. I know like San Francisco Bay Fair and Golden Gate Ferry have huge amount of grants, and they've been very successful getting grants. So it's questions, okay, how'd you do that? What does it take to get that? Are those grants still available to be had? And obviously it's changed a lot. There are a lot of environmental ones. Those kind of things might have gone away. Some of those have just been repackaged into something else. So it's spending time, maybe it's spending time in DC or with local representatives, getting on with the senators and the state and the congressmen here. Is like, what can we do to leverage our ability to get grants and be successful at getting grants? It's going to be a major focus. It has to be a major focus, because that's the only way you're able to build ships. It's getting capital grants.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you mentioned the Military Sea Lift Command. Could you tell a little bit more about what that is? And I think it's down in DC. They're just there.
So Military Sea Lift Command is a division under the Navy that operates cargo vessels essentially for the military. And in my division, we chartered private tankers to provide, basically, I was providing jet fuel to NATO bases around the world. And my area of purview was the US Gulf, the East Coast, and the Mediterranean. And at the time, it was a busy time because we were in the Bosnian War. This is quite a while ago now, but we had the Bosnian War going on. So I went from having 2 ships in the Mediterranean to having 20 ships almost overnight. And kind of the highlight, I don't know, you can't really call it a highlight because it was a war, but one of the things I did there is I was able to get an actual Jones Act waiver, because we couldn't get enough jet fuel from the US, so we had to get it from Japan, and we used a Japanese ship to bring it over, which is outside the Jones Act. But because it was of national security, we were able to secure that, and that was the only reason why. But yeah, that's what I did for Military Sea Lift Command. I was there for 3 years.
3 years.
4 years. 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think we talked about the Jones Act at one of our meetings, and we covered a lot of ground. Yeah, I was kind of enamored about the Sea Lift Command, because I really never heard of it. I do know I took a troop ship to Vietnam. It was 2 decks below the waterline, and that wasn't fun.
Right.
But
That might have been one of the old Liberty ships. Yeah, when I was at the Merchant Marine Academy, we spent half our sophomore year and half the junior on commercial ships.
Yeah.
I was a deck cadet and I had an engineering cadet, and I spent my first year was on a military chartered breakbulk ship. It was an old 1966 built Louise Likes, really old ship, but we carried everything from cases of soda to helicopters and high-speed patrol boats. It was everything. So we go all around the Pacific, just bringing stuff from one base to the next.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Military Sea Command is kind of the cargo backbone of the Navy.
Very good.
Well,
General Maurice Rose was the name, 900 and some odd feet. 5,000 passengers,
Wow.
all of them eager to fight.
well,
Thank you. What is the biggest drawback to you in taking this job?
I was thinking about that yesterday when I was driving to the airport. Is I would be away from my son, who's out in California. That would be the biggest drawback. So I wouldn't see him as much as I do now. I'm fairly recently separated, so I haven't seen my son as much as I had in the past. And that would be the only, obviously a positive is I see my daughter more, but not seeing my son as much that would be the drawback. But luckily we have Zoom.
Thank you for your honesty. Have you read the HMS report?
I have reviewed it. I haven't read it. I actually printed it out and I meant to bring it with me, but yeah, I've read a lot of it. Yeah, I think that's a great starting point for a lot of the Steamship Authority 2050. Man, that's a good kind of good reference material.
Thanks.
Was it my turn?
I guess if you must.
Stop it. So why do you want to do this? Because, what intrigued you about applying for this? What made you want to do this? What stood out about, if anything, about the Steamship Authority that made you want to throw your hat into the ring?
Simple answer, it looks so much fun. You have car ferries, passengers, you have a high-speed catamaran, you have multiple locations, there's an aging fleet, there seems to be this multitude of opportunities, and there's a big staff, and it's leading something, and not just that's an institution, but it's an institution. It's been around for a long time. Everybody knows what the Steamship Authority is, and it just feels like it's kind of the icing on the cake. I think it always feels like this is what my career has been leading up to, something great. And this is just a great organization that does some amazing things. And I'd be tickled, honored to be able to lead it and to be able to kind of help usher it forward with the team.
Okay, because I have to trust you. My people have to trust you.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of things that happen every day that make it possible for me to get home. So I'm just making sure that where you're coming from is a place that myself and the people I represent can trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's my job on a daily basis now. So we're running the Treasure Island and San Francisco ferry. My number one goal is to make sure there's a boat running every day on schedule. And when it's not, yesterday we had a couple cancellations. The day before we had weather cancellations. It breaks your heart in some ways whenever you get a call from somebody, hey, where's the boat? It's the last call you ever want to get from a passenger, especially one who's a regular, who knows you and has your personal phone number. Say, hey, I'm standing here on the dock, there's no boat. And that's I love it when they come to me and say, we love this service, it's fabulous. And it's a shot in the heart when they say, where's the boat? So I love being able to provide that service and being able to help let people feel that on a consistent basis, they know there's going to be a boat there. They're going to get home on time. They're going to be able to pick up their kids from school or what have you. That was one of our big drivers with Genentech. We actually had a little quick side story. We had, when I first started there, we had this big storm coming. And I was talking to my Genentech colleague, and we were a little bit worried about the ferry. Like, are we going to get ridership? It's going to be rough out there. People might want to avoid it because they're afraid they're going to get sick. we actually had our most ridership that day because they knew the buses were going to be jammed, just totally jammed up in every bit of traffic. Our boats got home on time. Even though it was rough weather, they still got back in time. So we knew on a consistent basis that boat's going to get there. The boat's out there, it's going to be within 5 minutes of its ETA. And it's, very rarely is it going to get delayed. Of course, we're in San Francisco Bay, it's a lot more protected than it is out here. But I think there's nothing more thrilling to be able to have people come up to you and say, we love the ferry, we love the crew, we love the consistency, we love the experience. Ferry riders are so much happier than bus riders or subway riders. And it's a great experience.
Thank you.
Yes, kind of following up with that, I would say that I see kind of an internal tension with our enabling act that established the Steamship Authority. Our mission is to be a lifeline to the islands. What the definition of lifeline varies, although I like Jim Malkin's definition is it's food, fuel, and medicine. And then on top of that, the Enabling Act, though, is supposed to be in the Steamship Authority for the betterment of all people of the Commonwealth. And a lot of the port communities off island feel a lot of pressure and adverse impact based on the definition of what that lifeline may be. And so I guess my question to you would be twofold. One, how would you go about defining what it means to be a lifeline to the islands? And two, what would you do to try to mitigate any adverse impact on the port community in meeting the obligation of being the lifeline?
I say the definition of the lifeline kind of is getting people to their appointments, getting people to where they need to be on a consistent and regular basis, and getting the supplies to them. I drove out to the docks this morning, and I just tanker truck after tanker truck coming up the road as they were coming off the boats. The islands wouldn't, how the islands can survive if the ferry service isn't there, and it's a critical need to be able to provide freight, cargo, passengers, getting people, let alone all the vacationers during the summertime. I think it's super critical. And then I'm sure a lot of the islanders, port communities here, they all understand, have a basic understanding of that. But I think, again, I think town hall meetings and getting out into the public and talking to people about it and getting them to understand how important this is, and throw some numbers at them. How many people buy, how much cargo gets put, how many trucks drive on a daily basis, how many people are going on a daily basis, how many doctor's appointments, funerals, baseball games do people get to. I think it's a lot of it is there's community building, probably within the organization and with external customers too.
There's really a certain amount of frustration that it's unavoidable. You have a trip cancellation for whatever reason, whether it's mechanical, whether it's weather, whether it's you have to cancel a trip because you don't have enough traffic on it, whatever the cancellation is. You've made a reservation, to fly out of Boston to California, of all places, and the flight cancels. Now, I don't know how you reacted when they told you that the flight had canceled. I know when Bob Davis and I were down in we're in New Orleans, and the PBA, meeting a conference there, and we were supposed to, I don't know what time our flight was, but we got to the airport about 10, 11, 12, something like that. And cancellation, and just continue. They had an ice storm in Boston, and by the time we got out of there to Boston, Bob's SUV was covered with ice, and he had to get his credit card out and scrape the ice off the windshield so we could even get in.
New England.
That's right. But, I wasn't happy at our wives with us, and I was chairing the meeting in the morning, which was at 9 or 10 o'clock. But we had to get, back home to Cape Cod, sleep a couple of hours, and then get back in and be lucid in the morning. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I was
so this goes with the territory, but you can understand the public, they were heading to Bermuda and they couldn't get over to the mainland. So you understand that. But
I think Bob might have been at, there was a PVA conference in Washington DC, the first one I ever, Passenger Vessel Association, it was
Yeah.
PVA. And I was at, the first one I ever went to was in Washington DC, and they had, I think it was called Snowmageddon. I don't know if Bob was, I think Bob was there. And we got, if you arrived on Saturday, you were in, but if you were coming later, DC got snowed in. And we were stuck in the hotel for, I think, for 4 or 5 days. There was feet worth of snow. You couldn't get, the people who worked at the hotel couldn't get home. They were all stuck there. And you have kind of 3 general classes of people. The people who say, okay, let's make the best of it. Let's go to the bar and have a great time.
Yeah.
Then you have another probably third of the people like, oh, well, what are you going to do? Bummer. And then you have another group of people that are going to complain. And there's nothing you can do for most of those people to, you can show them, explain to them, talk to them, try to give them all kinds of reasons why, like, we just got to do our best here. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to be satisfied. And it is what it is. And I think that's true for, I have that with Treasure Island Fair. There are some people that they're always going to be the first one to make a comment or be upset or demand a refund. It is what it is. And like I said, in Redwood City, I went out and kayaked with a guy, try to get him to understand my point of view, and trying to show him that I was willing to hear his side. He still was at me at every meeting. He was still would jump on me. We got along great outside the meeting, but but that was his thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the best I can. At some point, that is the best that I can. I can't do anything more.
What just happened was a question that I was going to ask you. You started it, and then you answered it. Because one of the things that we deal with is that third. And I don't think it's a third, actually.
I don't think it's that high.
The great silent majority
Right.
of people who use the Steamship Authority are comfortable, not excruciatingly happy all the time, but comfortable with the service
Right.
that the Steamship Authority provides. But let's go back to your example of the kayaking. You were running a ferry service that was creating a wake that was disturbing the kayakers. You met with the kayakers and you kayaked with the kayakers. And then you told us at our prior interview about what happened with this particular gentleman. And maybe you could go back through that, the process that started with this group complaining and how you dealt with it and where you wound up.
Well, I don't remember exactly how I phrased it last time, but so we had a 70-passenger catamaran that cruised at 50 knots. It was a fast catamaran. You only took it up to 35 knots in San Francisco Bay. But when it's up on plane, it's really got no wake at all. If you're going fast, you have really no wake because it's a catamaran. It was a hydrofoil assisted lift. And so we'd come down the bay, no wake. But as soon as you come into the harbor of Redwood City, you got to go to 5 knots. So we'd slow to 5 knots. All of a sudden, it's dragging its rear, causing a really big wake. And that's the problem. At really slow speeds, we had a really big wake, understandably. But we said, we're going 5 knots. And we actually had I might be diverging from my response before, but we had a town hall meeting where they actually brought in local police, came to talk about it as well. We had local, because they would call the police and complain about us, and the police came out and rode with us and we said, look, we're going 5 knots, like we're supposed to here. We're calling out, we're letting people know we're coming in. We're actually trying to talk to people as in, hey, we're coming in. The police said, yeah, you're doing everything you can. And somebody at the point says, like, we should have a speed trap on the water. And the police said, no, you're not going to have a speed trap. Like, why not? It's like, because you're going to, 9 times out of 10, when you set up a speed trap in your neighborhood that's demanded by the locals or whatnot, the people who get caught are the locals. And the Redwood City Shoals, what it would have been that cruise shell that's going full speed, going well over 5 knots. That sailboat going well over 5 knots. the chase boat for the sailing team or for the crew team, they're going well over 5 knots. We're going 5 knots. The only problem is at 5 knots, we're pushing a lot of water, and it's a challenge. So I went out kayaking with him and explained it to him. He still said, I'm still not happy. I said, well, you also shouldn't be over here on the inshore side. You should be off by the banks of the marshlands where there's more space for the waves to dissipate, not right up against the boats where it's just going to slap right back at you and be really bad. But in the end, I did everything I could, and he appreciated it very much, but he still was never quite happy with it. And, it worked out because for Facebook, it doesn't really work for having ferry service there anyway. So we only lasted 6 months. Because it's where Redwood City is and where Facebook is, it's probably another 10 miles, and that's the worst traffic in the Bay Area. So trying to get a bus from Facebook campus to the ferry just didn't work.
But the reason that I asked the question was the experience that you gained from it and the learning that you gained from it and how you did it. So thank you.
Yeah, it was just patience. It was the patience of just trying to understand, trying to see it from their angle, trying to get into their shoes and understand what they're seeing and appreciating what their experience is, but then understanding that we can only get so far. We're going to be friends. I had the same thing with Genentech. We had a bicyclist who always complained that saltwater splash on his bike was ruining his bike. We got covers. We put hoses at the dock on the inside that you could spray off the dock. I saw him a couple years later. He finally would just park his bike in Berkeley and walk from there. And so you avoided it. And okay, that's a great solution. But there's times where you got to realize that, okay, I can only go so far. I'm going to do everything I can in my power to be as understanding and compassionate and empathize with you. But at some point, we got to agree to disagree.
No? Bob? Bob?
Run out of questions.
Peter?
I'm satisfied.
Well, if everybody's satisfied, you want to close with anything? You got any things you want to share with us? Are you comfortable that you've had an opportunity to present everything that you'd like to present to the board?
I feel that I have shared everything. I've asked you guys questions in the previous meetings. I think I've learned a lot through this process, and every meeting I've had and every experience I've had with the Steamship Authority has only kind of reinforced my desire to be the next general manager. I mean, driving down to the dock today, actually seeing it in person, was my first time to actually see it in person, thinking, this looks like a lot of fun. This looks like an incredible challenge, but an incredible opportunity. And I'd be foolish not to jump at the chance. I'd say all my varied experiences has put me in a position, I think, where I have the skills, the understanding, the patience, the desire, and the drive to be a next successful general manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming here, and you have done a
Thank
great
you for having
job
me.
not showing your jet lag.
That's for sure.
Yeah. What's
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break for 5 minutes, and then we'll reconvene. Okay?
Great.
Thank you. Mr. Treasurer. Back in session. Okay, we are back in session. I thought that was a very productive, interesting, and informative couple of meetings. I would ask the board whether any questions or issues they wish to discuss, whether anybody is prepared to make a motion, whether we can make a decision now. We could, if people wish, wait. We should, or we could ask more questions of candidates if they're there. But I'm open to hearing. I have an opinion, but I'm very interested in what the rest of the board would like to do. Yeah, sure.
Usually I don't even need it, but.
Did not say that.
I'm prepared to make a decision, and I think probably everybody else is too.
Yeah. I wish I felt really strong one way. But I'm a little ambivalent of, making a decision right now. For my own personality, when I don't get myself to the point that I say, this is it, that I sit on it for a while. But I wouldn't be disappointed with either candidate.
Peter?
My preference would be to be able to think about it a little bit. We've gotten a lot of information. This is the first time I've met, well, the second candidate. I've obviously met the first candidate before. So I would like a little bit more time to go through my notes, think about how each answered the questions, as well as get some feedback from my constituents as to how they viewed today's interviews, especially from my appointing authority, the Falmouth Select Board. Being in touch with them, I think they would like some time to have input post-interview.
All right, since we got, did you?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Take some time. Okay, my own opinion is I'm, perhaps because I've been on the search committee and I've dealt with these individuals considerably, I'm prepared to move, but if the board wishes to take some time, then I'm prepared to do that too. I would like us, however, to consider and come back as soon as possible to make this decision, which is in fairness to our communities as well, in fairness to the candidates.
I would be ready by next week, by middle of next Wednesday or after.
Wednesday or after, and we could do this on Zoom. Wednesday or after.
It's fine.
Terrence, would we?
Can we do it on Zoom?
Pardon me?
Yeah.
We can do it on Zoom.
Yep.
Sorry.
We can do it on Zoom?
Yep.
Yeah, we can do it on Zoom, but I got it, John.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I'm talking to the board, not talking, okay, I guess I have to talk into this. So with the holiday on Tuesday, I think the earliest we could probably do it would be Thursday. Because we have to do the 48 hours notice under the open meeting law.
Mhm.
So just keeping that in mind, just.
Okay,
this is
so
holiday
Thursday,
time. State holiday.
Sure.
so Zoom
Or
on Thursday?
Potentially, if we did it this afternoon, we could go back and notice a meeting for, if people can meet Wednesday late in the afternoon, we could go back today and notice it.
I will
afternoon.
make my schedule happen. I would
work
like to
together.
get this done for fairness for all concerned.
Can't we meet Wednesday late in the afternoon?
Okay.
So.
I think Thursday will work well. I have a dentist appointment on Wednesday.
Me
Okay,
too.
so,
That's my.
okay, so Thursday,
Perfect.
okay, is there a time that's best for everybody?
I got something on Thursday here. I don't know what that is. Oh. Nope, I'm
Excitement of the
free.
open
free?
meeting law.
Thursday,
Morning or
Morning.
morning? Okay.
Sure.
Sure.
10 o'clock Thursday.
Send an notice out so we know.
Okay, we are going to post a meeting. And we- Right, we're going to post a meeting for Thursday, 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Virtual to make a decision on the candidates that are for us.
Okay.
Okay, anything further from any member of the board? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Seconded? Thank you very much, everybody, for participating.
all in favor?
All in favor.
Yeah, and now,
Aye.
all in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.